I want to begin by saying what an honor it is to be here and to celebrate that incredible experience of honoring our mothers. And a huge thank you to Amy for that beautiful presentation, that beautiful talk about the complex relationships that we have with our mothers. So my talk today is called The Simple Truth, and I had all these ideas about what that was. And what I know is to trust the moment, and what seems to be in the room isn't at all about the simple truth, although it might be. And what I want to say about that is life is complicated. How many times have we been told that? What if that's not the truth? What if that's a lie that has been passed down from generation to generation to generation? What if life is profoundly simple? And that simple truth is that you are whole and perfect exactly the way you are. That you are a perfect expression of the one power and the one presence. In other words, you are one with all of life. No place to go, no struggle, no complication. A very simple decision to absolutely know that. Now, for most of us, it's a journey getting to that simple decision. We're going to table that for a moment because I really want to talk about what's in the room and this profound experience of honoring our mothers. One of my favorite quotes is from Ram Dass that says, if you think you're so enlightened, go spend 2 weeks with your family. And so I had the opportunity, because I'm here speaking today, I went to see my mother and my sisters last weekend, and we spent some time celebrating Mother's Day early, and it was one of the moments that I really got to see in a very deep and profound way all the legacy of all the stories that have been passed down from generation to generation that have kept me limited, kept me small, and kept me afraid. And it was one of those moments where I was able to witness it and not get hooked. I had so much compassion for all the stories that had been passed down with my family. Now I'm going to just share with you a couple of the favorites. Life is not fair. There's never enough. I mean, those are actually the PG version of what really gets said a lot. There's actually other words that are used a lot. We went to dinner, and I was so struck by everything was wrong. The parking place was wrong. We had to wait for 30 minutes. Well, how would we wait for 30 minutes? Like, should we go somewhere else? I mean, it was so much anxiety. And I thought, wow, we could just be here for 30 minutes. And the reason I'm saying all of this is that those were the stories that I once believed to be true about myself and the world. And there was one point in my evolution that I recognized absolutely everything that had happened was perfect for my evolution. I love that Tony Robbins talks about that. I don't know if you know his story, but he had an incredibly abusive mother and an incredibly painful childhood because of that. And he came to a place where he recognized that he would not be the person standing up there doing his work if it weren't for all of that pain. So he found a place of not forgiveness for mother, but gratitude. Now I know for some of us that may sound, right? We may have a story about that. I'm grateful for the abuse that my mother gave me. We talked about forgiveness last month. And what came through is only ego needs forgiveness. Because in the ego, we have all the stories of rightness and wrongness and good and bad. And we have an idea of separation and fear and what we want to have more of and less of. Wow, is that exhausting. And that's what the Buddhist, that's the definition of suffering. It's clinging to more of what we desire and averting from that which we want to remove. So when we look at the complex relationship many of us have with our mothers, we can rest in a place, I can rest in a place. I love what Byron Katie says. When people ask for questions, How do you do this? How do I do this? She always says, or I've heard her multiple times say, I don't know for you, but I do know for me in my own journey. This is how I became free. I really believed that the only way I could be happy is if life were to show up in a particular way, or people would stop acting that way, or stop saying this, or I would find the perfect place, the perfect job, the perfect partner. And I came to a place of recognizing that absolutely nothing outside of me needs to change in order for me to be free. And see, I'm trying to weave in, if we think about the relationship with our mother, or if anyone here is a mother, and our complex relationship with motherhood. And the ideas, as Amy said, of how did I do? How did I do? When we arrive at a place where we welcome it all and identify it as fuel for our transformation, then it's all welcome. And from there, it's not about forgiveness, it's about compassion. I had so much compassion for my mother last weekend. I got to see how the stories that she has taken on, the beliefs and ideas that she's taken on about herself and the world, create her life. And I got to see that I do that too. So for me, the spiritual journey, we could say it's about changing the story. But at one point, it was about living beyond the stories. Living beyond these constructs, these ideas, these beliefs. I love, Amy, when you said the pain pushes you. Reverend Michael Beckwith says the pain pushes you until the vision pulls you. And isn't that amazing that that's what you came up with out of your own experience? That was your experience of that. Much like when I was driving here, on my playlist in my car, You Are the Face of God came on. And I walk in and hear them playing what? You Are the Face of God. And then I said, isn't that weird? And Gregor and I were like, wait a minute, that's not weird, that's normal. Everything else that we've called reality is really weird. Right? I'm not good enough. I'll never amount to anything. Life is to be feared. So this simple truth that we're all one with each other and one with source energy is a profound shift in the way that we can be in the world and see the world. And what I want to invite is it actually starts with a decision, and the only time we make the decision is now. The absolutely only time we ever make the decision to know the truth of who and what we are is right now. The only thought we ever need to question is the one we're having right now. Because see, it's my ideas about the world that create how I experience it. And so what if the spiritual journey is about unlearning all of that and living beyond it? What I'm called to do in this moment is to ask Spirit, also what I mean by Spirit is you, what wants to emerge in this moment? Any questions, any comments, anything that shows up right in this moment? I want to open it up and ask if anyone has any questions, any comments, anything they want to say about anything I just said, about Mother's Day, about our complex relationship with our mothers. Yes, Chuck.
So I love that it's just all simple, that we're perfect, just however we are.
Yeah.
But it only takes a moment, and I've forgotten that, and it all just seems complicated.
Yeah. So isn't that great? Because when I said life is complicated, I'm going to just acknowledge and let you all know a lot of heads yes, life is very complicated. We have bought into that. We have bought into this idea that life is incredibly complex, and I don't know about everyone here. I found spiritual traditions that were confirming that, very complex spiritual traditions, with laws I needed to learn and practices that I needed to do just a certain way. I remember when I met Amachi, if anyone knows who Amachi is, she's a guru from southern India, and when I met her in the, actually in the mid-'80s, before she was famous. I know that's kind of interesting, a famous guru, but when she was just kind of getting started in her world, and I remember being in the presence of her and experiencing absolute joy and laughter, and she was like a little child. And what was striking to me is everyone right around her was doing it oh so perfectly. Like they were trying to protect her. Now maybe in some ways, because she was so childlike, that was a role they needed to take on to like kind of protect her. But what was striking to me is she was absolute joy. She was absolutely in the moment, bubbling with love. And everyone around her was like trying to pray just a certain way and hold a certain posture. And it was one of the first moments I realized, wow, what if this is so profoundly simple? What if this is as simple as remembering how we came in? How we came in. We tried to show this video today that came across Facebook. I put it on my Facebook page if anyone wants to see it. But it's a very small baby, and the mother is singing to the baby, and the words that the mother is singing is, "You are perfect, you are perfect, you are perfect." I don't remember exactly, but the message was, "You are perfect," and the baby's just so present with the mother, and then tears come up in the baby's eyes and starts to roll down his or her cheek. And that was a beautiful demonstration of how, as a little baby, we're so in the moment, and we're so in tune with the energy of life. And that is what we call love and presence. For a baby, that's innate. And so what I want to say is, for each of us, that's innate. That love and connection and open-heartedness, that recognition that tears come when we experience joy and sadness. And then as Amy said, I just keep plugging Amy today, but it was beautiful, that it's all welcome. Every feeling is welcome. That we know it's all fuel for transformation. So yes, Chuck, I love what you're saying, because it's so profoundly simple, and yet for most of us, it feels really complicated getting back to that simplicity, right? Because in my own life, I created all kinds of pain and suffering and struggle so that I could get to the place where I surrendered and said, oh wow, it was here all along. Not only was it here all along, but I was it all along. See, I never actually left that little baby that you saw in that picture with my mother. I think I was 3 months old. I hadn't forgotten yet. I hadn't picked up all the stories, all the beliefs, all the ideas. And so consciousness and conscious awareness, interestingly enough, we talk a lot about elevating consciousness and expanding consciousness, and at some point it's simply returning to the truth of who and what we are. Anything else? Anything else that's up? Yes, hi.
Actually, what came to my mind, because I'm feeling it today, is what makes life complicated is when I don't let go of pain.
Yes.
When I'm holding on.
Yeah.
When I'm holding on, then I project that life is complicated.
Yes.
And it's the fear of letting go, and the unwillingness to let go, whatever it takes, the courage to let go. That's what makes it complicated.
Yeah, and isn't that amazing, right? We're like, oh my gosh, my life is so painful, but I'm not willing to let go. Right? I'm not willing to let go because who am I going to be if I don't have this? Some of us have believed our stories for so long that it's absolutely terrifying to let go of that story or that belief. And for me, what you're speaking to so beautifully is the difference between pain and suffering. You know, I say it this way, and I'm open to even another paradigm. I say it the way I say it is, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. Obviously, that's an old Buddhist, that's something that came from ancient Buddhist teachings. So pain is in the body, suffering is in the mind. It's an idea that I shouldn't be this way. I shouldn't be feeling this. I'm also open to a new paradigm where maybe pain's not going to be part of our existence at some point. At least not in the way that we experience it now. And what creates the suffering is me holding on to it and not wanting to move on or let go. One more. There was one more hand up. Yes, hi.
Hi. I'm Amy asked about what you know about you. And can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I had not really thought, the biggest thing your mother taught you, and I had not really thought of it in those terms before. What came to my mind was she was unapologetically herself.
Mm-hmm.
And that was our Achilles heel, because she taught me that, and I learned it well, and it frustrated her no end, and I'm so grateful to her.
You know, I want to say something about mothers and daughters. I've worked with a lot of clients. I've worked in the field of mental health and addiction for many years, and there seems to be this incredibly complex relationship, especially with the oldest daughter. I watched my mother and my sister just go at it at some point. Go at it. And they're so deeply attached to each other's stories. Right? And, you know, they say our family knows how to push our buttons because they installed them. But here's the thing. They can't uninstall them. You know, my mother will simply just look at my sister and she's like, why are you looking at me that way? Right? There's this old story that she hasn't let go of. So our work, if we call it work, is to recognize what if we were to decide that absolutely everything that happened perfectly. Right? What if we really were to find that place? Maybe we do call that forgiveness. Maybe we do. Or maybe we call it presence or connection or oneness. What I want to offer in closing is simply this. I want you to take a moment and think of your mother. Just really sit with whether she's here on this plane, whether she's here in this room, whether she's moved on to another plane. I want you to sit with the energy of your mother and notice what comes up for you. Is it open-heartedness? Is it connection? Is it gratitude? Is it fear? Is it a story of rightness and wrongness? And what I want to offer is the possibility at this moment that we can absolutely move into complete and utter acceptance, recognizing her as a spiritual being and a spiritual being that was having a human experience. We take a moment to really infuse every thought, every idea, every belief about our mother with gratitude, knowing that at this moment it's all absolutely useful for our own transformation, for our own awakening. That it is true that the divine feminine is born in this moment within ourselves. And it is here for our greatest awakening, the great remembering of the truth of who and what we are. Absolute love, absolute compassion. We send that now. And if you are a mother, thank you for that. And if you are a mother, what would it be like to know you did absolutely the best that you could have done at that moment? And at this moment. And so, finally, in closing, what I want to say to each person in this room is that you are one with source energy. You are whole and perfect exactly the way you are. You are love. You are light. You are Goddess expressing. You are God expressing. What happens when we really know that? So my invitation is for each of us right now to make the decision that this simple truth is not only possible, but it is the greatest reality of all. We're going to have this incredible experiment called life. We're going to walk out from this experience and know that in the world and see what happens. See what happens when we absolutely know that deepest truth of who and what we are, and that we can reflect that back to every person. So thank you so much, as always, for allowing me to be here with you. Such an honor. Many blessings.